A party was the last thing Mary Magdalene expected as she approached the tomb on that Sunday morning. The last few days had brought nothing to celebrate. The Jews could celebrate. Jesus was out of the way. The soldiers could celebrate. Their work was done. But Mary couldn't celebrate. To her, the last few days had brought nothing but tragedy. Mary had been there. She had heard the leaders clamor for Jesus' blood. She had witnessed the Roman whip rip the skin off his back. She had winced as the thorns sliced his brow and wept at the weight of the cross. In the Louvre, there is a painting of the scene of the cross. In the painting, the stars are dead, and the world is wrapped in darkness. In the shadows, there is a kneeling form. It is Mary. She is holding her hands and lips against the bleeding feet of the Christ. We don't know if Mary did that, but we know she could have. She was there. She was there to hold her arm around the shoulder of Mary, the mother of Jesus. She was there to close his eyes. She was there. So it's not surprising that she wants to be there again. In the early morning mist, she arises from her mat, takes her spices and aloes, and leaves the house, past the gate of Geneth and up to the hillside. She anticipates a somber task. By now, the body will be swollen. His face will be white. Death's odor will be pungent. A gray sky gives way to gold as she walks up the narrow trail. As she rounds the final bend, she gasps. The rock in front of the grave is pushed back. Somebody took the body. She runs to awaken Peter and John. They rush to see for themselves. She tries to keep up with them, but can't. Peter comes out of the tomb bewildered, and John comes out believing. But Mary just sits in front of it weeping. The two men go home and leave her alone with her grief. But something tells her she is not alone. Maybe she hears a noise. Maybe she hears a whisper. Or maybe she just hears her own heart tell her to take a look for herself. Whatever the reason, she does. She stoops down, sticks her head into the hewn entrance, and waits for her eyes to adjust to the dark. Why are you crying? She sees what looks to be a man, but he's white, radiantly white. He is one of two lights on either end of the vacant slab, two candles blazing on an altar. Why are you crying? An uncommon question to be asked in a cemetery. In fact, the question is rude. That is, unless the questioner knows something the questionee doesn't. They have taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they have put him. She still calls him my Lord. As far as she knows, his lips were silent. As far as she knows, his corpse had been carted off by grave robbers. But in spite of it all, he is still her Lord. Such devotion moves Jesus. It moves him closer to her. So close, she hears him breathing. She turns, and there he stands. She thinks he is the gardener. Now, Jesus could have revealed himself at this point. He could have called for an angel to present him or a band to announce his presence. But he didn't. Why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for? He doesn't leave her wondering long, just long enough to remind us that he loves to surprise us. He waits for us to despair of human strength and then intervenes with heavenly. God waits for us to give up. And then, surprise! Has it been a while since you let God surprise you? It's easy to reach the point where we have God figured out. We know exactly what God does. We break the code. We chart his tendencies. God is a computer. If we push all the right buttons and insert the right data, God is exactly who we thought he was. No variations, no alterations. God is a jukebox. Insert a tithe, punch in the right numbers, and bam, the divine music we want fills the room. I look across my desk and see a box of tissues. 10 minutes ago, that box sat in the lap of a young woman. mid-30s, mother of three. She told me of the telephone call she received from her husband this morning. He wants a divorce. She had to leave work and weep. She wanted a word of hope. I reminded her that God is at his best when our life is at its worst. God has been known to plan a celebration in a cemetery. I told her, get ready. You may be in for a surprise. Have you got God figured out? Have you got God captured on a flow chart and frozen on a flannel board? If so, then listen. Listen to God's surprises. Hear the rocks meant for the body of the adulterous woman drop to the ground. Listen as Jesus invites a death row convict to ride with him to the kingdom in the front seat of the limo. Listen as the Messiah whispers to the Samaritan woman, I who speak to you am he. Listen to the widow from Nain eating dinner with her son who is supposed to be dead. And listen to the surprise as Mary's name is spoken by a man she loved, a man she had buried. Miriam. God appearing at the strangest of places, doing the strangest of things, stretching smiles where there had hung only frowns, placing twinkles where there were only tears, hanging a bright star in a dark sky, arching rainbows in the midst of thunderclouds, calling names in a cemetery. Miriam, he said softly. Surprise. Mary was shocked. It's not often you hear your name spoken by an eternal tongue, but when she did, she recognized it. And when she did, she responded correctly. She worshiped him. The scene has all the elements of a surprise party: secrecy, wide eyes, amazement, gratitude. But this celebration is timid in comparison with the one that is being planned for the future. It will be similar to Mary's, but a lot bigger. Many more graves will open. Many more names will be called. Many more knees will bow. And many more seekers will celebrate. It's going to be some party. I plan to make sure my name is on the guest list. How about you? No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him.